There are stories we read for entertainment, and then there are stories that quietly reshape how we see ourselves. Tonight's guest writes in the spaces where imagination meets emotion, where fantasy, paranormal, and lived experience become mirrors for the human condition. His stories don't just transport us to other worlds, they invite us to feel more deeply in this one. This is a conversation about why we tell stories, how fictional worlds help us survive real ones, and what happens when imagination becomes a form of resilience.
Welcome back to Spirit Talk Show, Bedtime Stories for Grown-Ups, where the story, reflection, and imagination come together to help us make a sense of being human. I'm your host, Doyle, and tonight we're joined by Richard Spiegel, a published author of 5 books whose work spans fantasy, paranormal fiction, romance, and young adults. Richard's stories illuminate the human experience through imagination, drawing on personal journey, emotional depth, and deep respect for the power of narrative. His writing explores empathy, resilience, and the unseen threads that connect us to one another. His work reminds us that reading isn't just escape, it's practice for living. In this conversation, we'll talk about storytelling as emotional training, how fantasy helps us process real-world pain, and why stories might be one of the most powerful tools we have for growth, connection, and healing. Richard, hello.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, how are you? Hey, I'm here with my 2 co-hosts, Howie, and I have Russ here to my left. So I promise to hear it's not just my alter egos.
Good to meet you, Richard.
Hey.
Nice to meet you guys.
So you're a little bit far from the mic. I'm hearing a little bit of an echo. Can you get a little closer to the mic?
Yeah, is that better?
Okay, yeah, that's a lot better. Okay, thank you. So, hey, well, thank you for coming on. You're like 5 books deep here. I believe you're working on your 6th one, or you're working on your 5th one? I don't know.
There's 5 out. There's 5 more that are ready, just kind of in line.
5 more, wow.
I'm always right. I mean, there's dozens more coming. I just can't stop.
Well, there's dozens more coming. It's like you think you have enough in the backlog for 12 more, or you're thinking dozens. So 48 more.
Yeah. It just depends on how quickly the publisher allows me to publish.
Are these carry-ons of the 2 existing trilogies, or are they completely separate story arcs and worlds?
The Eternal Nights, that's what it is. That's the main series. That's going to be science fiction. It's going to encompass dozens and dozens of works. The Wolves and Ravens trilogy, that one's already complete.
Oh wow! So this is the trilogy, and you're gonna stay with the 3, or is there going to be more books in that series?
There's a few ideas I have going forward, but I'm playing them kind of close to the chest for Wolves and Ravens.
So how much do you? I know that you served in the armed forces for a while, and how much do you take from your service and your storytelling?
A lot of the action. It lets me write things in a more realistic fashion, especially with Eternal Nights.
Yeah.
Since Eternal Nights is like a real world modern times kind of thing. So the equipment, weapon systems, formations, things like that. I'm able to do things more realistically.
And go ahead.
So, and how you I haven't read it, but looking at the sort of summaries. So when you're writing the Sword of God in terms of how they're coming after your 2 main protagonists, you're sort of drawing on your military experience in terms of the equipment and tactics and loadouts that they're doing.
Yeah, because they're military organizations.
Yeah.
So they're using modern hardware, things like that, and like I said, and the time frame is modern day.
Okay.
For the current books anyway. And then on the vampire side, they have their own forces, with equipment and things like that. So you're going everywhere from like small one-on-one altercations to actual battles with dozens of people on both sides.
Wow, great. So you're actually retired from serving right now, right? Or are you still actively serving?
Yes, I was medically retired last February.
And do you mind telling us which branch you were in? I'm sorry if branch isn't the right word.
Well, I started with the 82nd Airborne Division when I was much, much younger. I did some deployments with them. And then later on, I switched from active duty over to National Guard. And I spent the last 15 years with the Pennsylvania National Guard.
So you actually were deployed in countries somewhere where you served in a hostile area. Is that is that what deployed means?
Yes, the first time was Iraq when I was younger.
Yeah.
More recently, we deployed to Egypt, and it was from that deployment where I ended up going from there to like a hospital and got medically retired after that.
If you're airborne, I'm sure you have knees that are 100% healthy.
Healthy, yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I do not.
So every person I know in the armed forces who seem kind of like you look kind of young, they have a lot of medical problems, knees, shoulders. It seems like it's a really rough life, and I think people don't understand the sacrifice you gave by going out there, and your body suffers today because of the sacrifice you gave. So that's a big thing. I wish more people understood it and knew it. But thank you for what you did.
No, yeah, thank you.
So you write across fantasy, romance. We're reading about you and we're researching you and young adult, but it all centers around like the human experience. So when did you realize that storytelling was how you made sense of the world?
Well, I've always been writing, and it's just like I live in these other worlds that are just so real to me. When we went to Egypt in 2022, I knew I was going to have some time, so it's like, let me try this. I'm going to have some time. Let me try this again. And then when I let that genie out of the bottle, I just couldn't put it back in. I can't stop. It's actually one of the reasons I got medically retired. I spend too much time in these fake worlds that are as real to me as the real one, and I just start putting it down on paper.
Wow. So now when you say, let me understand, I think I just brushed over something that you said. Did you say your second time deploying, you were injured and that's why you were medically retired? You were injured in like during your deployment?
Well, I did get some nerve damage on that deployment, which was what originally sent me to the hospital, but they, let's just say, released me for more mental concerns.
Okay, well.
Do you find it problematic to sink too deeply into the worlds you're creating?
Yes. It's the other way around. It's so easy to end up in these worlds. It's problematic to deal with the real world. Like, I mean, my wife is like the one who almost takes care of me, who points out, like, it's been 3 days, you haven't eaten, you're just pacing around in circles, but in reality, I'm living in these other places. And it's what makes the story so organic and realistic, because to me, they are.
Yeah, I play a lot of tabletop role-playing games, and there was a time back just after college where we'd been playing in a game called Shadowrun for a little over 2 years, and I realized I had over 1,000 hours as this one character, and I'd started every once in a while having dreams as that character.
So do you ever start dreaming as your characters, or do you start thinking like of that world as the real world?
Yes. It's actually an enormous problem. It makes for great storytelling, but a difficult life.
Wow. So was there a specific moment, a book, experience, a chapter in your life like that made you think, I need to be a storyteller? Like, is there something specifically happened?
I don't know if there was any. I just started doing it. I did it for me. Like it was for my benefit, not any kind of idea of like publishing or anything like that. And that just sort of came later because I figured, whatever, nothing ventured, nothing gained, right? But I do it for me.
Do you find metaphorically putting pen to paper helps sort of ground you in terms of taking that sort of just from just being in your head to being sort of having some kind of physical representation?
It's a never-ending battle, because it's like putting pen to paper, like you said, to get it out of my head. But all that does is just free up space for more stuff to fill up in my head. So it's like I can never get ahead of it. I read somewhere that for a professional author, it's an average of 12 to 14 months to take initial idea to a finished manuscript, whereas I'll do one in 5 weeks. It's ridiculous.
So how do you keep, and maybe this is just in terms of my brain, do you find that you've got, well, obviously if you're doing it in 5 weeks, you're able to keep on one thread and drive it forward. I would have, well, I do have, 50 notebooks in various boxes in the barn with, 6 pages of the start of things, but never pushing forward to the end. How do you keep focused on driving? And 5 weeks is amazing. How do you embody that so completely to get something like that done?
That's what comes from being stuck in it. I live it. Like, to me, it's the real world. So I'm not really driving any particular plot or anything like that. It's real. So I just write it down.
So you're almost being more of a correspondent than an author. I mean, not saying it's not being an author, but you're not crafting the story, you're documenting the story.
That's exactly how I put it when some people, obviously I created it. It's fiction. It came from my brain somewhere, but I see it as more of being a record taker. Like, I'm watching the stuff happen and I'm just writing down what I see.
Yeah,
Fascinating.
Yeah, we spoke to a few authors, and a few of them act like I am the book's writing me, like I'm the one. It's being presented to me, and they don't know where it's consciously coming from, and so it's something. So let's talk about these shields behind you on the wall. Is that looks like an English cross there behind you on the wall? It looks like there's some coat of arms.
Oh yeah, I was trying to figure out how to blur my background and it didn't work. So just a couple of things I picked up from Renaissance fairs back when I was much younger.
I was going to ask if you were part of the Society for Creative Anachronism or not.
Not officially, no, but I do like going to Renaissance fairs.
Wow, so cool. Well, hey, so we do these thing. We do this thing in the show where we write tribute stories. We research you. We look up you online. We look up your reviews, and we collect them all together, and we write a story that's a tribute to you. And so we have it. We'd like to read it to you. We can read it to you, or you can read it if you would like to read it. Usually the people want to hear the velvet voice of Howie. Read it to them. By the way, I promise these people you're talking to are humans in the room with me. It's not just me throwing my voice. There we go. It's just because they don't have a camera that can embody all 3 people. So unfortunately, you get to see my face. So. Would you like to look at the story and maybe read it, or could we read it to you?
I wouldn't mind you reading it.
Okay. So, are you reading, Howie?
Which one? Either way. You want me to do it?
Okay, so here we go. This is the story about Richard. It's Spiegel, right? Is that how you say your last name? Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
The Room Between Worlds. There are writers who build worlds, and then there are writers who build rooms inside the reader. Quiet places where something long held can finally sit down. Richard Spiegel writes that second kind of story. His worlds are filled with the fantastic and the paranormal, but they are never about spectacle alone. They are about the spaces between things, between fear and hope, memory and becoming, the life we survive and the life we imagine might still be possible. In his stories, magic doesn't shout, it listens. A reader opens one of his books expecting escape and instead finds recognition. A character pauses, unsure, searching, wounded but moving. And the reader feels that familiar ache. I've stood here too. Not in a castle or a shadowed forest, perhaps, but in the quiet aftermath of a decision or the long corridor of doubt, or the moment when the past taps gently on the present. Richard's work understands something essential, that fantasy is not the opposite of truth. It is one of the most honest languages. Through imagined worlds, he explores real resilience. Through the paranormal, he gives shape to the things we sense but cannot name. Through romance and coming-of-age stories, he reminds us that transformation is not reserved for heroes. It belongs to anyone brave enough to keep going. There's empathy woven into his sentences, patience in the way his characters unfold, respect for the reader's inner life. His stories do not rush toward answers. They allow uncertainty to breathe. They make room for emotion without demanding resolution. And in so doing, they offer something rare, permission to be unfinished. To read Richard Spiegel is to be reminded that imagination is not a luxury. It is a survival skill. That stories are not distractions from life, but rehearsals for understanding it. That sometimes the most powerful magic is simply seeing yourself reflected and realizing that you are not alone. These are not books you close and forget. They linger. They soften the edges of the world. They leave a light on in the hallway between who you were and who you are becoming. And that, perhaps, is the quiet gift of his work. Stories that illuminate the human experience, not by explaining it, but by honoring it.
So what do you think? Do you think that captured you, that captured your essence?
Yeah, I like that. That was nice.
Wow.
Thank you.
So I was going to ask you, I'm sure you know that on the show we use some like AI generation. Like as an author, I get a very mixed bag with people's opinion on the use of AI in like how do you feel about it?
I don't use it for anything. Maybe I think it's probably built a little bit into the editing software that I use sometimes, but for the actual writing, no.
Yeah. Well, I don't think for creation it's good, but for organizing and correcting grammar, that's where it does tend to be quite well. So, we had talked about you bringing a piece of your work to read, and I think you'd emailed me something, right? Or was that... we talked about you reading some of your work. Is this something you wanted to read?
I don't know. I saw everything. I think my publicist was a little bit late in sending me stuff, so I did read that. I do have an excerpt I can read.
Okay.
If that's a thing that we want to do.
Well, usually I give the authors an opportunity to do it if they want to. If you'd like to, that would be great. This would be a great time to do it right now.
Sure. I mean, everything's been relaunched recently, so in some ways, like all 5 books are kind of like brand new. But Broken Angel, the conclusion to the Wolves and Ravens trilogy, is the one that actually is the brand new book. And I do like to put excerpts in the very front of my books. It's a very common practice. You open the cover and there's like an excerpt there. So I can read the excerpt for Broken Angel.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
So it's just simply titled, what would you sacrifice? I know I don't want to spoil a lot of stuff, so I don't know how much sense the excerpt will make, but she was being pulled downward with the grace of a broken rag doll, and her brother was dwindling in the distance. However, she felt a spark of hope as she was reminded of the 2 other things she had here. Qatar shrank his size down to that of a normal wolf before landing on Kukuk's back and starting to rip at one of his wings. Chin simply dove straight down, using the power of her own wings to catch up to the falling angel. Unfortunately, the raven's wings weren't strong enough to support them both. "You have to fix my wings," Gabriella shouted. "How?" "The hard way." Chin did her best to straighten the angel's right wing. She ignored the pain noises from Gabriella that followed every snap. Once finished, the single mighty wing was enough to finish halting their descent. Chin then quickly helped straighten her overall body to make it easier for Gabriella to restore her spine. The angel's left wing was bent and twisted far worse than the right one had been. It was actually pressing down on her left shoulder, preventing proper use of that arm. No matter how hard Chin tried, the wing refused to budge. "Yanu, I can't fix the left one," she yelled. Gabriella pulled a sword with her right hand and nodded to the wall. With Chin's help, she got close enough to bury the blade into the stone. She then braced herself, facing the wall. "You need to reach inside my right wing," she told the raven, who was hovering behind her. "What? Just do it." Chin reached her hand forward and gasped as it seemed to disappear inside the blood-soaked wing. "I give you my sword of my own free will," Gabriella mumbled. "What did you..." Chin stopped talking as she felt the pommel of a sword appear in her hand. She tightened her grip and drew Gabriella's flaming sword. "Chin, I need you to cut it off," she said sternly. "What are you talking about? What do you think?" she muttered, bracing herself more carefully. Chin's eyes went to the twisted remnants of the left wing. "No," was all she said. "Do it now, hurry," Gabriella insisted. "I can't," Chin started to cry. "It's in the way, do it," the angel shouted. "Yenu, you said your wings were soul, I command you." That's all I'm giving you.
That's it. So, well, give us now, that's the cliffhanger. Tell us what book that's from and where people can get it, and your website and stuff?
Well, that's like I said, that's an excerpt from Broken Angel. It's actually book 3 for the Wolves and Ravens trilogy. So that's a little bit kind of out of order. Yeah, it makes a lot more sense when you read the other books first.
And is the next one you've got coming out the book 3 of the Eternal Nights trilogy?
Well, technically book 1, because the 2 that exist now are a prequel. So the one that'll be coming out in spring is the first one of the real series.
And does it follow the same couple, or is it completely different characters?
Oh no, it'll be the same couple of vampires for Eternal Nights. It's just much further into the future. The prequel kind of introduces those characters, answers a lot of questions, and in the second book, Origins, as the title implies, they get an understanding as to what they really are, and they get not to spoil anything, but they get an idea of what's coming, and they decide that they're going to try to stop it, but they don't know when it's going to happen. And then the series picks up 1,000 years further into the future.
Which would be 1,000 years ahead of us of current day? Or?
Yeah,
Okay.
the 34th century. Okay. Basically, what they're waiting for finally happens, and they have to deal with it.
Oh, wow, cool. So I'm reading about your work online, and what people usually say, they talk about your stories help build empathy, resilience, and emotional awareness. And like, as a writer, are you conscious about these impacts, or do they just naturally emerge in the story?
A lot of it's natural. A big difference is that I don't just focus on the physical side of things. I'm not afraid to show the psychological side. That's something that gets avoided a lot in storytelling, either because people are afraid to, or more often they just don't know how. So you see inside the characters' minds as they suffer from the stress of what's happening, and like I said, they suffer for what they're doing, and sometimes it doesn't go well. They have psychological breaks. I explore concepts like suicide and things like that, where characters just can't handle it, and that's just as detailed as the physical side.
Well, that kind of leads me to my next question, because you're talking about this emotional depth. So, have you ever written a scene that surprised you emotionally and discovered something about yourself that you weren't expecting?
I'd say that kind of happens a lot. That happens that does happen a lot. I mean, like I said, I live in these places, and I get so emotionally attached to the characters. And then I'll write something, and it's I can't even believe I just wrote that. I'm reading it. Broken Angel. I said something about I can crank out a book in 5 weeks. Mm-hmm. Broken Angel took me a year. It's actually the shortest book I've ever written. It's only 90,000 words, but it took me a year of active writing because of just how dark and how difficult things got, where I couldn't handle it. I actually had to stop. I would write myself into a corner to where I just I need to put this down. I can't handle what I'm writing. That was a rough book to write.
Does your wife help you recognize when you're too deep into a corner like that to help pull you out to do something else for a period?
She does her best. I mean, she's like a superstar. It works about half the time, and then the other half of the time it doesn't go well for her, but she keeps trying anyway. She won't give up on me.
Right. It's just awesome. that can be a really difficult thing to be self-realizing that you're in, that you've gone into too dark a space.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's a little bit more used to it now, but in the past, she'll walk into a room and she'll see me looking like I just found out my whole family died, and it's I don't what's going on, why are you this upset, what's happening, and then trying to explain to her, and she's Chinese, so there's a language barrier, which makes it even more complicated. But she's pretty good at helping.
Wow. So I know you've spoken about how reading supports emotional resilience and stress. So was there a season of your life that in a season of your life, was there stories that really sustained you?
You mean other?
Yeah, I mean,
You mean other?
like when
Like
you
that?
were like before you were a writer, like were the stories that you would read, like what were you drawn to that really sustained you in those times that helped your stress relief and emotional resilience?
Well, I used to read everything. I grew up with my dad's old science fiction, Isaac Asimov, Arthur C. Clarke, stuff like that. I grew up reading stuff like that. And then, I read all through. I read all through high school, like more modern science fiction, and that was always big. David Weber and John Ringo,
I love
those are
them.
two authors.
Yep.
Those are two authors. I love them. Their stories were like a really good escape for me before I started writing my own.
Yeah, Jim Bain created quite a publishing house and a stable
Oh
of
yeah.
really amazing authors.
So we are storytelling podcast. We do read some stories, and what I did, and I've had a few authors say, "I'm not really into this," but what I did do is I took some of the descriptions of your stories and had them rewritten. And yeah, I used the AI, but you don't seem like you're a fan of AI. But we could read those. If you're not into it, we can do something else, of course. How do you feel about that?
I'm curious.
Okay, so what we did is, and you can guess which one I took. I took the description of your stories, and would you like to read it, or have us read it to you? I can share the screen, and you can see it. All right, let me go to the screen here. Here's your... So I think you probably know which one it is, because that's probably one of your titles, right? You need to make it bigger?
They're the Wolves and Ravens. They're the Eternal Knights characters.
Okay, you're doing the scan before the read.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand what they're talking about.
Well, what I did is I took your descriptions from your website, and like as a note, was there issues with your website yesterday? I was going to pages, I kept getting errors. Was there something going on with your website yesterday, or because it seems to be working perfectly now?
I don't know. I'm not trusted to have control over it. The publisher, they won't let me mess with it. I just send them material.
Okay, yeah. It looks like it's working perfectly now. Yesterday, if I clicked on the books link, it would go to an error page not found, and like just the homepage was coming up.
Oh, okay.
So, what would be your? You've got people that are like going in the army right now. My own son is considering talking to recruiters right now. What's your message to young people in that and in life? I mean, do you have a message for people?
People who want to serve. I mean, it's definitely a noble, a noble idea. It's a little bit of a different world than it was when I first joined, but it's definitely a world that needs people that are willing to sacrifice and step up and do things like that. I mean, and there's a lot of great benefits for doing it too. So,
Well, yeah,
I mean,
so you are like 100% retired, and you're devoting your life like full time to this writing. And you're saying you write a book in 5 weeks. Is that 8-hour days, or are we talking 17-hour days for 5 weeks?
yeah, the second one. That's like I can't stop, kind of. Yeah, I just can't stop, kind of thing. Like I don't even recall eating, and then it's just done.
Mm.
And then I'll spend 6 more months rereading what I've written. But the active writing doesn't take me that long.
And do you longhand it? Do you type it, or do you dictate it, or a mix?
I type it. I used to love writing, but I mentioned a little bit earlier. I do have a little bit of nerve damage. I'm left-handed, and I can't handwrite for long periods of time anymore. But I can type just fine. So I'll just regular typing. I tried dictating. This was a long time ago, so I guess the software wasn't really up to it. It did not work, and I haven't really tried it since then.
Yeah, I bet the dictating, I was thinking like, well, he could dictate. I bet the dictating software, especially if they're controlled by AI, probably are doing a little better now. I mean, but having said that, my iPhone dictation is pretty terrible at times, so maybe not.
Well, the actual dictation software like Dragon and things like that,
Yeah.
you do a fairly extensive training.
Oh, so
unlike voice to text on your phone, which is really generic.
Well, is that what you mean? Like one of the writing dictation softwares, like Dragon? Were you talking about just like your word processor dictation?
I mean, I don't remember what it was called because it was like 25 years ago, but it was something that you had to like train the computer to do it. But
Okay.
I didn't like it. It's probably a lot better now. It's just not something I've tried recently.
I bet it is good. I mean, but you can imagine you're in a room dictating, telling your story out loud to a machine. It might become more emotional. You might become like deeper into it if you're then talking it out loud into the world, right? Like in a room, it would sound like it might get a little manic actually, because if you're writing for 17 hours and now you're talking for 17 hours into a mic to get it down, that might be kind of a lot.
Yeah. I can see myself talking over myself and making no sense to the computer and things like that. Yeah. Typing the normal way is a way to at least kind of focus the insanity.
Well, how fast you type? You're not doing like Hunt and Peck typing. You're typing like 90 words a minute, like that kind of typing.
I don't know. I'd say I'm average.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm no typist, but like I am watching the keyboard. Like I can't just like look up and type. I have to actually kind of watch what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So I'd say maybe 60 words a minute, give or take.
So let me ask you about your connection with paranormal, because the show's called Spirit Talk Show, and the reason it was called Spirit Talk Show is the beginning it was about ghost experiences and stuff, and then it evolved into this like storytelling thing because it seemed to be something that resonated better with people. But like, do you have like personal like paranormal experiences?
No. I was very interested in that kind of thing, and honestly, it's the publisher that said paranormal and occult just because my characters happen to be vampires. But I wouldn't really classify the books that way because they're not really in that kind of world. Like the vampires, they're 900 years old, they're married, but they're just trying to live their lives. It's not like it's this whole vampire universe or anything like that. They're just trying to live their lives. They want to be left alone, and the world won't let them. Things do get pretty dark in Origins, and that might be a little bit closer to paranormal on that one, though, maybe.
Okay, so you would call your work as fantasy. That's how you would describe it.
I'd say fantasy. Well, dark. I'm told to say dark fantasy because it's not for children.
Okay. Oh, well, it did say somewhere that you wrote young adult stuff too. You don't write.
It was actually the reverse.
What?
It was.
No. Yeah.
Wrote things. Found a lot of the young adult fiction to be frustrating. So writing more for an adult audience. I don't know. I might have that wrong, but.
No offense to the audience, but I do not write for 12-year-old girls.
Right.
Well, you think like the young adult audience that's what it's aimed for? Is 12-year-old girls?
Well, when you look at every successful young adult series out there, yeah. I mean, look at Twilight. Twilight destroyed the vampire genre for over 10 years, but it made $1 gajillion because it was geared towards very young girls. It didn't make any sense, and it worked because it was geared towards that audience.
Well, that's why the guy had his shirt off the whole time. Yeah. What was that?
Yeah.
What was the actor's name who had his shirt off the whole time?
Well, and that's the vampire My Little Pony werewolf crossovers. Right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, when you see a young adult series, you've got the love triangle trope. That's always a thing. There's always a love triangle. I don't deal with that. That's silly. Like my characters, they're married. And in Wolves and Ravens, like it's not technically a marriage, but it's a clear relationship between two people. There's romance there, but it's an older, more adult kind of long-term thing. Okay.
Wow. So hey, I wanted to get in we also wrote a poem about your work, right? So we want to get Howie's going to read the poem for you here. And do you have it? The one that says what the story knows? Do you see it?
What the story
knows. Sorry, I kind of sprung it on him that he was going to read the poem.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, here you go.
Okay. Some stories arrive like doors, others like mirrors. Yours arrive like rooms already warm, as if someone has been waiting. There is magic here, but it does not dazzle, it listens. It moves through shadowed corridors of the heart, where fear and hope sit beside each other without explanation, where the past turns softly beneath the floorboards of now. Your characters do not conquer the dark, they learn its language. They carry wonder carefully, as one carries a candle through unfamiliar halls, not to banish the night, but to understand its shape. In these pages, the paranormal is not escape. It is recognition, a whisper that says, what you feel has already been real, has always been real. Transformation comes quietly, not with crowns or thunder, but with pauses, with breath held between choices, with the courage to stay present when it would be easier to flee. And when the story ends, something remains, not answers, but permission. Permission to be unfinished, to be searching, to believe that imagination is not a detour from truth, but one of its most faithful paths. These are not stories that close behind us. They leave a door ajar, a light on, a reminder that even in the strange and unseen, we are still learning how to be human.
Wow, cool. I think that poem, it looks like it's more inspired by your work than by like you as an author. But what do you think of that?
No, I like that. That was nice.
Okay. Well, I can send these to you if you would like to read them afterwards. But so, Richard, so when all is said and done, so what do you hope that a reader feels when they close one of your books? What's the goal?
Complete immersion. The biggest, like some of the biggest reactions I get that I love the most is not when people say like, oh, that was really good, or oh, that was great. It's when people look at me and they're confused. It's like, how did you do that? Because they don't understand like how did this exist in this way that it just took me that. Like I want that kind of emotional attachment to the characters to where they just like cannot wait for what's going to happen next.
So when you've talked to your readers, do you find that they tend to be binge reads? Once they start, they have to read through it, not, I'll read a chapter a night kind of thing.
Almost exclusively. I very rarely encounter somebody that does the slow. I have encountered people that have had to stop because they got too, I don't know if scared is the right way to put it, but it got too intense and they needed to take a break. But primarily binge readers.
Interesting.
It sounds like there's a parallel between the way you write and get into this world that your like wife has to come and pull you out of, and you want the readers to get into that state too when they're reading, right? That their wife,
exactly.
The wives will be pulling them out, right?
Well, it sounds like yes.
No matter how long the books are, there's almost no filler. Everything feeds into something else, so it's just it never stops. Yeah. Well, until the book's over.
Well, I think that's where the correspondent aspect of it comes in that you are, because you could have these amazing stories being created by your back brain and then be incapable of taking those stories and passing them on. Mm-hmm. So there's where there's a real art to listening to the stories that your mind is creating and being able to translate those to someone else through the written form.
Yeah,
that's right, because creating a good story and being a good storyteller are two different things. Like there's a lot of things in a story where people make this mistake all the time. They throw details where details aren't needed. They start telling people too much information and they remove the person's imagination. You describe something that you just wasted your time. Nobody wanted that description. You want the person's imagination to do some of the work so they can enjoy it that much more.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, that was one of the sort of tragedies to me about the Lord of the Rings movies. As wonderful as they were, there's a whole generation now that won't create their own vision of the Balrog, of Moria, because if they've seen the movie first, the brain is lazy. It's now going to say, "Oh, I've got that image. I don't need to create my own."
Well, yeah, it's hard not to think that's what the Balrog looks like now, right? And that's what we imagine it looked like. So,
and
go ahead.
You mentioned Lord of the Rings, and one of the sad things, that was a long time ago. One of the sad things is people can't think of anything since then. In the fantasy genre, like everybody just comes up blank. That's just how empty that genre's been.
So you don't think there's any books since the writing of the movies of the Lord of the Rings? No fantasy book?
Well, there's probably a lot of good books out there. I can't read everything, so there's probably some good books out there. But if you're looking at visual media, there's been nothing.
Well,
Not really, not in the genre.
Well, not only can you not read everything, it doesn't seem like you're spending 17 hours a day, like immersed in writing a book. When would you have time to read?
Well, actually, I've noticed that I can't read anymore because I used to be able to read and enjoy it. I can't do that anymore because now when I read, I can't help but be critical about what I'm reading. I can't help it anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like books lose their enjoyment for me because I'm too busy criticizing the author, and that's not fair, and I can't stop.
Right.
So
I'm curious, with your flavor of vampirism, did you use sort of, I mean, there's I don't know, half a dozen or more sort of different legendariums around how vampires exist, what makes a vampire, et cetera, et cetera. Did you sort of tap into one of those sort of existing bodies and genre, or did you come up with your own flavor of this is what vampirism is to you?
To my knowledge, from what I try to read as much as I can and stuff like I said, I'm pretty sure what I went with hasn't been done yet.
Interesting. Wow.
Which was the whole reason I went that way.
Great. Well, then people need to pick up your book. This would be a great time to talk about where to get them. It's richardspiegel.com. That's Richard, spelled the normal way, Spiegel, Spegal. Is it books.com or just, is it Richard Spiegel Books?
Well, the website is just richardspiegel.com. Richard Spiegel Books is my Instagram. And, everything's on Amazon, but the website has a lot of content. There's movie trailers for each book, which I love the fact that the publisher made those. There's behind-the-scene videos, testimonials, all kinds of good stuff. Yeah. Plenty of links.
Yeah, I'm looking at your website. It's pretty extensive. And there's also, it looks like you in your military uniform, like doing interviews or something, or readings. Is that it?
I did an intro video for each book. And I'm in uniform because of the timing. I was actually on duty. And yeah, the videos are like 2-minute videos, but you know how it is. Like we chopped them up over like 2 hours, and we had to keep running to formations and stuff. So I was sort of stuck in uniform, and my camera guy, which is just somebody who held my phone, lived off post. So we had to do it during the duty day.
Well, maybe we should cut out the part where he used his duty time to work in his own personal commercial thing. I'm totally joking, Richard. I'm totally joking. He's on duty. He's making more money outside. Okay. Well, finally, you talk about if storytelling is one way humans practice being alive. What story are you still learning about how to tell about yourself?
Just where things can go from here. It's a struggle like all disabled veterans have to face, like a struggle of how to just move on. They're fighting a whole different battlefield. Yeah. Mid-age, older, and they're completely starting over somehow, and they have to keep moving forward. And yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
And the VA is, of course, on the very cutting edge of mental health research and everything else, right? I mean,
that might be
being sarcastic.
It's better than it was. I am fortunate at where I live geographically. There's the VA, the local VA is actually a full medical center, so I have a lot of resources that a lot of veterans don't have easy access to.
That's good.
Well, I have friends who are in the armed forces, and they're young people, and they said, there's a lot of talk around if you need mental help, get mental help. But then if you're in a job where you say, I need mental help, suddenly you're taken off your job, the job that you loved, right? And you end up behind a desk because you said that you needed mental help. And so this doesn't encourage.
Well, I think it's one of the greatest shames of our country is that if you look at the number of if you look at military death by suicide after coming back from being in theater, vastly, by several multitudes of people who actually died in theater, and that's we just don't address that and take care of the people who are coming home, and it's.
Well, what needs to happen for us to take care of them? What needs to change in the culture shift to take care of these people coming home?
It's tough. It's like what you said about on the job site and in the military. It's like 10 times worse. Soldiers have to lie. If you want to continue your career, you have to lie a lot when they ask certain questions. Because if you answer the wrong question the wrong way, your career's over.
Yeah.
You know? And people don't get help because there's certain trigger words, like you were talking about suicides and stuff like that. If a soldier says the S word, they're chained to a hospital bed now. They're done. Like it's treated with isolation and confinement, and that's not how you treat mental health issues.
Right. It's like 180 degrees off from what you should be doing.
I had a friend
we preach awareness. We say, oh, we're more aware. We give these briefings and stuff like that. But in practice, they don't take care of it at all. Completely the opposite.
I know that's true. My friend was like in a nuclear sub doing nuclear stuff, and he mentioned something about having some mental problems or needing some counseling, and suddenly he's off the boat, and he ended up being medically retired. So he just said something in this job he loved that he trained for years, and then suddenly he's off the sub and he's at some desk, and so it's a shame that he said I'm going through a hard time today, and he called it. He said he described it the wrong way as some mental problems and that was I'm a teacher, and so sometimes in our career we have to lie to get past systems. So unfortunately, that's part of it. What a wonderful high note we're ending this interview on. So let's end it on something high. So let's talk about when your books are coming out. Give us dates and give us. Of course, we can buy them all on Amazon and your website. But hey, line us up with the dates.
Well, everything just happened. There were some issues over the holidays. Everything got fixed. So all 5 books are available on Amazon, all under my brand, all with the proper pricing. Everything got fixed. The next book, I don't know, probably spring.
Yeah.
Everything's kind of crazy with the new releases and all. So I don't know when it's going to calm down enough to give the publisher a new book.
So, okay. Well, hey, any last thoughts before we sign off and say goodbye?
No, not really. I had a great time. This was a little bit different than any of the other ones I had done. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we like to mix it up. I think the storytelling is something, and the tribute stories is not something that people experienced before, and we mostly get pretty positive reactions to it. But hey, thank you so much, and we will, of course, we'll be in communication with you. And so, did you have any final thoughts there?
No, it was interesting. I'm tempted to get one of these books.
Well, you're tempted to get one of the books. Everybody should buy one. He says he's tempted to get one of these books. The author is right here. You're saying I might get one of the books.
He's a fan of David Weber and John Ringo. The odds of my liking his writing are pretty high.
That's what sold you right there. Okay, so we'll definitely buy your books, and hopefully the 350,000 people listening to the show should buy your book too. And thank you so much for coming on, Richard.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see your take on vampirism, because a lot's been done on it. So I look forward to a new, different vision of it.
That was intriguing, but okay. Thank you, Richard.
All right, thank you guys. Y'all have a nice night.
Good night.
Thanks for spending time with us. Now go make a story worth telling.